Hello YouTube, this is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. How are y'all? This evening, afternoon, morning, whatever the hell it is for you. Today I want to talk to you about some thoughts I'm having about manifestation. As you know, I've always felt that the law of attraction was at best incomplete. So what I'm going to share with you is what I'm experimenting with, playing around with, and researching in my own meditations, which is dimensional shifting. And my recent escapades with things I've already talked about in other videos have changed a lot of my understanding about how reality works and how we create our reality. So, as you know, if you're not new to the channel, you have heard me say many times, you create your reality. You create it with your intentions, and you create it with your unconscious intentions. That's really what does most of the creating, is your unconscious intentions, which is why you can have people who are very consciously desirous of being happy, prosperous, healthy, whatever, and for whatever reason they can't seem to manifest that or manifest it on a regular basis. So it's not just as simple as having a conscious intention. It's not just as simple as the law of attraction would like you to believe, which is just to have a feeling. And as long as you're focused on a feeling, that feeling will vibrate out, and then it will attract that same thing to you. And of course, there's some truth to that. But I tried that many years ago, and I just couldn't get it to work. And I don't think I'm alone. I think a lot of people who follow the law of attraction either have the ability to really connect and take action on the things that they know that they want, or there are people who are in conflict with themselves on a deeper unconscious level. Consciously, they're trying to manifest something, and but they end up in conflict, and so nothing ever really manifests as well as they would like. But I'd like to bring a different twist to this, which is that there's another way to manifest our reality, which I believe has to do with learning how to shift dimensionally. So we live in 3D space-time. Now the reality is that there's actually a small portion of you that is permanently in 3D space-time. 3D space-time is three-dimensional space with the fourth dimension of time. You cannot separate 3D from time, so there really is no such thing. I'm happy to be wrong about it, but based on science and based on my experience, there really isn't a 4D. You don't go from 3D to 4D. It doesn't work like that, because if you are in 3D, you are already in the fourth dimension, because the fourth dimension is time. And from our perspective, time goes linear from past to future. So in order to really be able to do really huge, magical, huge changes, we're going to have to shift from a dimensional perspective. And I think there are some ways to do that. But bear in mind that in my experience so far, and I'm confessing to you that I'm very new at what I'm expressing, At least as far as I know I am. But that, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, in order to even function in a higher dimension, you've got to be willing to die to a lot of things that you're attached to in 3 dimensions. And then we end up with some catch-22s, which are, if somebody is very comfortable with themselves, if they're very evolved, if they are psychologically individuated, where they know that they have value in and of themselves, that they don't need anything outside of them to give them value, they're going to be less likely to be trying to get anything anyway. This is why you have spiritual masters who live in caves in the Himalayas. It's because they've achieved such a level of satisfaction and fulfillment just in their meditative practice that they realize they don't need anything else. That, once you tap into other dimensions, once you tap into the timeless state of connecting to your soul and connecting to consciousness in general, you stop desiring money and houses and things like that. Those things just become silly after a while, because your greatest joy comes from going deep within and connecting to the source of all things. So, as a result of that, they die to the attachments that they have in 3D. And as it turns out, the things that you are most attached to, not all things, but many of the things that you are most attached to in 3-dimensional reality, are things that you believe you need because you feel limited. You feel like you don't have enough. So the fear sets in. So that's coming from a place of insecurity and fear. And you see this in the law of attraction groups that get together. And people will start, and they have vision boards and things like that. And they will create a vision board where they have a mansion. They have, all this stuff. Cars and things like that. And that lets you know what their attachment is. Their attachment is to physical possessions, because they believe that those physical possessions will protect them. Well, the house will protect you from the world. There's obviously an attachment to looking a certain way to the world, getting the world's approval. The idea, and this is, again, you've heard me say it a million times, but it's true. And I've worked with a lot of people trying to help them manifest their greatest career. And so they want to come to me many times wanting to know how can they make a lot of money. And my interaction with them is, why don't we focus on what you want to do that makes you happy? And then see if we can turn that into a way for you to make money. And what will happen is people will say, once they are able to tap into the things that really do make them happy, in their mind there's a conflict, because those things aren't real careers. You can't make money doing that. People say things like, what is it, if I ask, what is it that you want to do? If somebody says, I want to travel, and then they'll say, but, I can't make money doing that. And I'll go, what are you talking about? There are no shortage of people on YouTube who have travel channels. There are no shortage of people who lead tour groups, and they get paid money and they get a free trip out of it while they're taking other people on tours to other parts of the world. So that's an example of somebody doing something that they love and making money at the same time. So the conflict is in people's mind is that what they love to do isn't the same as going and working for a living. And so they make a distinction between following their joy and having money. And so people will say things like, well, I have to make money first, then I can go whatever it is that they want to do. So to be able to make that shift where we're operating from our joy. So I'm going to share with you a new way of looking at it. It's a new way for me. And that is learning how to put yourself in an interdimensional state where you're in between dimensions. And in that interdimensional state, instead of trying to change your reality, because our assumption is that our three-dimensional reality is fluid and it is solid, and so we try and change this timeline. And that brings with it this feeling of it's difficult, it's challenging. But one of the things that I've seen lately, as I've been, I don't know what word to use, as I have been experiencing higher dimensions and going to these places and interacting with the beings in these higher dimensions, what I've found is that just by doing that, a lot of the attachments and unresolved issues and karmic issues get burned off. Just by being in these higher dimensional places, a lot of that stuff just dies. Now, the experience for me is that I will go through some trauma afterwards because it is a death. And so, ironically, after I've had some of my most inspiring experiences with these higher dimensional beings, afterwards I will be kind of a nutcase. I'll be kind of a basket case because I'm having to go through the death of all kinds of ego attachments, and it's challenging. And then afterwards, what I find is, interestingly enough, not only does my actual reality change, like things that would have been impossible just a week ago, all of a sudden are now part of everyday reality. And I'm like, how the heck did that happen? But more so than that, people are changing. And there's an interesting dynamic as the more that I interact with higher dimensions, the people in my life make these huge evolutionary shifts. They become happier, they become healthier, they become more prosperous, and they may not realize how much they've shifted, but I go, to myself, I'm like, oh my God, these people are shifting at a super fast dynamic rate. And we live in a holographic multiverse, which means that you do have your own path in life and your reality is changing because of what you do. And at the same time, everybody in your reality is a projection from you. And so when you shift, everything in your life shifts with you. And I'm going to share with you, just to give you an idea of how powerful this is, I'm going to share with you another story that I've shared numerous times, but it is so powerful, it is worth listening to again. And so I'm telling myself again. And this is, the story about Dr. Haleakala Hulin. I believe he's alive still. He's a Huna shaman. And, the Huna shamans believe that there is no external reality. There's only an internal reality. And everything and everyone in your life is a reflection of your internal reality. And so he uses the word data, like data on a hard drive. He says you have data in your lower self, your hard drive. And if you change the data within yourself, your external world has to change. So what's happened is that he has this absolute firm assumption that he is absolutely, totally convinced of. Now that makes things a lot easier. And that assumption is exactly what I just said, that his internal reality, his soul, is infinity, that the entire multiverse is inside of him. So if he changes things within him, the outer reality will shift. It has to. So he was known as a psychologist. He's a psychologist. And he was known for his extremely powerful, transformative effect on clients. And an insane asylum in Hawaii, he lives in Hawaii, contacted him and asked him if he would come and work with some very, very, hopeless mental patients that, had to be physically tied up, because they were so violent. And they didn't like that. So they came to him and said, "Can you help?" And he checked inside of himself, basically he checked to see if it was his destiny, his dharma. And as they described it, he felt within him that this was something he was supposed to do. So he took the job and he said yes. So they said, "Great, what do you need?" He says, "Well, get me an office." So they gave him an office, of course. And they said, "When can you meet with the clients?" And he says, "Oh, I'm not going to meet with the clients." And they said, "How the heck are you going to help them if you don't meet with them?" He says, "Listen, this is take it or leave it. This is how I do things. Just give me their files." So what could they do? So they gave him a stack of files. And he would go into the office, into the insane asylum, and he would sit in his office and he would open up the files and he would read about patient X. Patient X, he would read, whatever was going on with them. And then he'd read something like patient X bit off the ear of one of the attendants, and then he would have a judgment about that. "Oh my God, that's horrible." And at that moment he would stop. And then he would go inside and he would say to himself the Huna prayer, which is, "I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you." And he would then work to see that horrible, violent, insane person who bites people's ears off if they get too close. He would imagine seeing that person, as he says, as they truly are, which is they are perfect beings of light who are filled with love, and he would see them. He would then change his judgment of them and turn them inside himself. He would turn them into perfect, loving, happy, beautiful people. And when he was able to change within himself his perception of that person, which would be different from how it was written on the page, which would be different from his judgment. "Oh my God, that's such a horrible person." When he could shift that and then see them in his heart, he could see them as being perfect, then he would move to the next client. And what would happen is, when he shifted and changed the perception of that individual within himself, these people would magically get better. They would get better to the point where they could be let out of the hospital. And it was blowing everybody's minds. How the heck was he doing that? And he would explain to them that all of these people are just projections from inside of me. And if I see them, if I judge them in a negative light, it means that I'm judging a part of myself, because they're out there doing their thing, but they're a part of me. And so if I learn to love them and heal that part within myself that is not balanced, then they have to get better. Now, that's going to blow your mind, because you know that you're an individual. And so when I say to you that I'm having these experiences and I'm shifting on deeper levels, and if you are somebody that's in my life, and I'm seeing that you are shifting dynamically, you're going to say, well, wait a minute, I'm not just some thing that's out of your mind. I'm an actual person. Yeah, I know. But it still doesn't change anything. When you shift, everything around you shifts. If you don't like the people in your life, if you shift your judgment about them within yourself, if they stay in your life, they have to shift. Now, I suppose it's possible that if they don't want to shift, they will leave. And I've lost plenty of people. Clients have left my life because they weren't willing to do the work. But so this, by the way, is one of the reasons that you pick a teacher or a guru. And this is why you do things like in the Vedic tradition, you put the teacher's picture on your altar. And the reason for that is because when you choose a guru, you then have become part of that guru's internal reality. And if you trust their spiritual practice, if you trust that they have the ability to continue to improve and shift and evolve and perfect themselves, by being in their reality, you will shift and grow. And this is another thing, when people bow down to the guru's feet, it's really saying, I want to be part of your internal healing. I want to be part of your perfection, the process of perfection that you're going through. It's just a mind-blowing concept. So, if you're tired of waiting around for your teacher, then you do some spiritual work to change yourself. So having said that, I'm telling you my experiences that I am having major shifts as a result of working in higher dimensions. It's challenging. It's very challenging at times. Sometimes I think I'm losing my marbles. But if I stick around and I'm patient with it, as I begin to shift and heal and move, everything around me shifts. I mean, objective reality has changed as a result of that. And people are changing in positive ways. So how do you do this? Well, this is probably going to be something that we will have to talk about a lot as I continue to experiment with it and learn more about it. I'll probably come up with some specific techniques to do this. But generally speaking, what you can do is you can do like a modified CE5. So the thing that makes CE5 work is you astrally projecting outside of 3D space-time. So assuming, there are a lot of people that astral project. In fact, I know somebody who's a very advanced yogi who astral projects all the time in his meditations. He travels the universe, but he's never sought out any other beings before. And he heard about me doing CE5, and so he, one day in his meditations, as he's, astral traveling through the universe, he decided to see, hey, is anybody else out there? And sure enough, some triangular-headed ET being showed up, and they had a moment. And the point is that hadn't happened his entire spiritual practice until, he actually went looking for something like that. So what I believe is happening when you astral travel is that you are leaving 3D space-time. So when you leave 3D space-time, it's like anything else. You have to decide what your destination is. You have to decide what your what your intention is, what your goal is. When you leave your house and you go, into downtown or into the city, you have a goal. You're going to go to the grocery store. You're going to go sit down and have some lunch. You're going to go play tennis. You're going to go to the gym, whatever. And so every time you leave your house, it's not the same because you have different destinations, you have different goals, and so you have a different experience. But you've done one thing the same, which is you've left your house. You've left the confines of your house. So when you astral travel, you leave the confines of 3D space-time. For me, the easiest way to get out of 3D space-time is to astral travel outside of Earth's orbit. And I've come to the conclusion that the magnetic, the magnetosphere that surrounds the Earth is actually sort of like a barrier that keeps 3D space-time functioning. And so when you leave that, you're no longer in, at least astrally, I don't know what happens physically, but on an astral level, when you leave that, you're no longer bound by 3D space-time. You can go anywhere you want, you can go anytime you want. So what I've been doing is I have been going to, I don't know what it is, I just know what it feels like. I sort of go through the membrane when I'm out there into what feels like a light world to me. And I'm assuming that's 5D. I have no idea. I know it's no longer 3D. And I personally have all kinds of crazy feelings in my body when I know I've shifted into another dimension. When I'm in that space, what I then do is I imagine seeing a bunch of little spheres that are what we would consider to be timelines. That word, by the way, it isn't working for it anymore because timeline has this linear thing. It's not like you're looking at a bunch of different, linear tracks of time. I don't think it works like that. I think our experience of time is not a line. I think it's a bunch of, innumerable number of moments or spheres that sort of intersect. In any case, what I do is I imagine that I'm in a place of light and I choose to bring in front of me a bunch of little spheres that are different, what we would call timelines. And I look for the one like a crystal ball. I imagine the one that I want until I can see it in one of these, spheres that are floating around. And then as I focus in on it and really see what it is that I want, I then go into it. I go into it and I experience it. And then you have the law of attraction kick in, which is you connect your feelings, positive feelings, to the experience. Now, I also know that I've tapped into something that is part of my destiny, because when I do, again, I will get this jolt in my physical body, just like an intense jolt. And that's one of the ways that I know that, this is the one I belong in. And then I will revisit that. I will, in meditation, go back to that, bring it up, go in there, experience it, experience the emotions, and my body's doing all kinds of crazy things in terms of the feelings that I have when I do it. But I guess the point I want to share with you is that I want to expand your understanding that it's not just sitting in 3D space-time and imagining what it is that you want and then trying to bring it to you in 3D space-time. Because there's an assumption that 3D space-time is this cohesive thing, and it's not. It is completely malleable. Each moment in the future is a blank slate, completely a blank slate. It is literally possible for one moment, things could be the way they understand them, and in the next moment, Antarctica could be at the North Pole instead of the South Pole. This is how malleable our reality is. And if we can learn to understand that, we'll have a much easier time creating the life that we want. Now, we still have to take action. That hasn't changed. So once you've gone in and found the sphere that has the reality that you want and gone in there and experienced it, you still then have to take action. When you get back into your 3D body, you have to fearlessly take action as though that reality is coming for you. And then, then it should. Okay, so I think I've said everything I want to say about that. I'm happy to take questions if there are any, so let's take a look and see what we got here. We got Thundra. She says hello. She is one of my Vedic astrologers. You can go to her website, thundra.thunderwizard.com. Of course, we have Vincent.thunderwizard.com, one of my other astrologers. And you can see all of the stuff he has, Vincent.thunderwizard.com. And then we have Grace.thunderwizard.com. She is one of my rune readers. And she is also a powerful healer in her own right. All right, we got a question here. Nella, again, please, today it's not a big deal. Write the word question in all caps. If there's a bunch of people, I'd miss your question. I don't want to. You ask, can I do the lightning qigong twice a day? It's okay with me. Why not? I mean, I've got a morning practice, an afternoon, and an evening practice. So I already have, laid out the lightning qigong to do it, more than once a day. I don't expect everybody to do it, all three, if they don't want. Some people just want to do a morning practice. Some people just want to do a nighttime practice. But I've given it so you can do it morning, noon, and evening, or the different practices. That's it. We don't have any other questions. So I'll do a little bit of business to take up some time, and then if you have questions, you can go ahead and write them. So the main purpose of this channel is to do the exercises. It's not to listen to me talk. Listening to me talk is pretty much worthless if you're not doing the work. So the free channel has if you go to the channel page and look in sorry, I did a lot of meditating today, so I'm kind of loopy. If you go onto the playlist, you'll see a lot of the different free practices that you make yourself use of those. But what I'm really encouraging people to do is to go here to thunderwizard.com and subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. It's the most powerful energy practice in the history of human beings. I know that sounds like quite a claim, but I believe it to be true. You're not going to find anything anywhere else that teaches you the three main energy systems. Qi, with Qigong, life force energy. You've heard of that. Kundalini, you've heard of that. That's not life force energy. That is the energy of consciousness and connected with the nervous system. Qi and Kundalini actually work together and they can stimulate each other. But then there's a third energy which is unknown to almost everybody, and that is called the Shin, the heart mind. And you have an energy center around your heart which is made up of lightning. Literally, I mean, that's what they do when they start somebody's heart, is they shoot you full of electricity because you have that. That's what makes the heart work. Now, that lightning energy is self-contained unless you know the very simple but unknown movements that can be done in order to flip the switch on, which will take that lightning energy and send it out through the rest of the body and through the mind. When that happens, then you start tapping into higher dimensional energies. And then You're able to manifest more in your life, which is most important. You can apply it to anything. People apply it to martial arts. They apply it to, whatever. So the only place you're going to learn all three of those energies is here at thunderwizard.com at the Lightning Qigong. All of my books, courses.thunderwizard.com. The most powerful energy practice in the history of humankind, as far as I know, is here at maoshan.thunderwizard.com. All right, that's it. So I don't know. There are people out there who think my name is Mao Shan. I don't know that. Some people just don't pay attention. That's not my name. All right, so that's it. Other questions? Let's see. Oh, Nella wants to do all three twice a day. Well, give it a try. I mean, if it doesn't, you'll know if you've overdone it, if you get a headache, if you get cranky, if you get too super tired, then you know that you're overdoing it. But if you can do all three twice a day, then who am I to say no? All right, Vincent.thunderwizard.com. Honest feeling. I am discovering how important subtlety is. I'm currently meditating on the idea of powerlessness. Powerlessness over myself and others. I feel I'm learning and growing in my recovery. That sounds very profound. Congratulations. Keep up the good work. And you're grateful for the progress you've made. Good for you. I'm grateful for the progress you've made. Okay, I don't see anything else here, so I guess we're done. So yeah, that's it. So keep your eyes peeled for more videos and things coming. And I will see you guys all next time. Take care.